Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. We hope everyone has been having a wonderful Pesach. In February of this year, Carolyn and I had the opportunity to travel to Israel with the Minneapolis Jewish Federation Tikvotenu 3 mission. It was an incredible experience, which we personalized by staying on in Israel for another week of traveling on our own. Let us be clear, the Federation trip was not designed to be a fact-finding trip, exploring all aspects of the Israel-Palestine conflict. It was designed to focus on Minneapolis' sister city, Rehovot, and communities in the Gaza envelope, the Israeli area adjacent to the Gaza Strip, that their funds support. The purpose of the trip was to allow us to bear witness to what happened on October 7th, listen to Israelis share their stories, and to volunteer and help the people of Israel recover. It was an amazing and emotionally packed trip for us, and while we could easily talk for hours about our experiences, we want to focus on our personal reflections and a few common themes. These are bearing witness, listening, volunteering, seeing the trauma and responses to it, and what we experienced that was unexpected.
I believe that certain things are immutable, like gravity. Always been there, always will. I was born in 1952, only 4 years after the establishment of the State of Israel. The existence of Israel was now immutable. It would be forever. Since it never occurred to me that it might not always exist or that I might not always have the right of return, I didn't really need to think about it or worry or do anything. As I grew up, I turned my attention to other things. Little by little, I have awakened from that naivete, or ignorance you might be thinking, about the utter fragility of what I had believed would, in fact, could never change. October 7th was a wake-up call, and though I didn't wake up right away, I am married to someone who had never really been asleep on this issue. I believe that Israel has the right to defend itself, and I want and need it to exist. I am not blind to the horrors of what the Israeli government is inflicting and to the suffering of the innocent in Gaza, and that creates quite a lot of pain and confusion for me. But I say again that I believe Israel has the right to defend itself, and I want and need it to exist, not just for me, but for my children and my grandchildren and those that come after. What I know clearly is that most of what I had come to believe is immutable is not. I don't have to work to preserve gravity, but I do need to keep working on things that are not, in fact, immutable. But what to do?
Bearing witness and listening to stories of what happened on October 7th was a major focus of the first week of our trip. We traveled south and stopped at the bomb shelter where Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, and others took shelter from the Hamas terrorists who had attacked the Nova Music Festival and from where they were dragged into captivity. We then traveled to the Nova Music Festival site, which is now considered sacred ground. We listened to stories about festival goers who were murdered there, as well as those that survived the attack and those that died trying to save others. We walked around the grounds and saw pictures and memorials to those who lost their lives. So many of these victims were the same ages as our own children, who have often attended music festivals in this country. Later, we stopped to talk with 2 soldiers stationed near Kibbutz Be'ari about their experience being in the reserves for most of the last 450 days, while their wives and children try to get by without them at home. We went to Kibbutz Cholit, as Carolyn will talk about shortly, to plant trees, but also to see this devastated kibbutz of where there were 200 people living on October 6, 2023, and that now has only 5 or 6 residents living there, trying to make it ready for people to come back next year. We walked around the kibbutz with one of these people as he told us what happened on October 7th. And we heard from Jackie Vital, about her daughter, Adi Vital Kaplun, who was killed there that day. Jackie then asked us to walk into Adi's house and the safe room where she was ultimately murdered. We went to Ofakim, a town just west of the Gaza envelope that was also attacked, where 51 people were murdered on October 7th, and listened to Osi Lankri and other women's stories of that day. And we heard from many other reservists, including Avitai, who owns the travel company that arranged our trip, about what it's been like over the previous 500 days when he has mostly been in the Miluim, the reserves, not only being away from their families, but also from their businesses, many of which are teetering on going under.
We participated in several volunteer activities. We planted trees at Kibbutz Holit on Tu B'Shvat as they worked to reclaim what was destroyed on October 7th. At Nechamat Israel, we packed bags of food to be distributed to those in Rehovot suffering from food insecurity. Every Thursday, these households receive 2 large bags of food, some things clearly meant for Shabbat, a chicken and a bottle of wine, and some to help in the coming week, flour, sugar, coffee, vegetables, and fruit. We packed these bags and other volunteers delivered them across the city. I'll talk more how this organization came to be in a few minutes. We also packed food in Jerusalem at Pantry Packers, a group that provides hundreds of families with staples each week. We took 13 wives of reservists to a lovely restaurant meal and paid for their childcare while they were with us. These reservists had been called up after October 7th, and many had served for well over 400 days away from their families. We brought gift bags for the wives, and they had the chance to share their stories with us. We had also brought with us hundreds of cards made by children, including our granddaughters, letters thanking the soldiers and their families that we gave out all over the country. That night at dinner, we sat with a lovely woman who later texted me a picture of our granddaughter's card on her refrigerator. We made a huge barbecue dinner at an army base near Gaza, near the Gaza border. Grilled meat and big Israeli salad for the soldiers there. We also helped to pack boxes of clothing and supplies for troops at the front. Huge boxes we filled with fleece jackets, rain gear, hand warmers, etc. We visited wounded soldiers in the orthopedic rehab unit of Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Here too we gave them cards from children, as well as lots of Lego sets, which they used not only for rehabbing their small motor skills, but also for their calming effect. One man had trouble sleeping, and in the middle of the night, he would create elaborate Lego sculptures to restore his serenity. In all of these places, we listened to stories from the Israelis that we met and bore witness to their pain. Everyone in the country has PTSD. Everywhere we went, we saw the trauma that had been experienced. I want to talk about 2 places in particular, one which I described before, Nechamat Israel, where we packed bags of food. This was an organization that was started and run by Rehovot residents who are volunteer paramedics, as well as being reservists. Some went on an ambulance call and saw that the family had little or no food. He and friends gathered food for them and delivered it. From there, it has become an institution. These volunteer paramedics now also volunteer to collect, assemble, and deliver food to families in Rehovot. Here was a clear case of someone witnessing a need and figuring out how to fill it. These guys were inspiring and made me think a lot about how to bring that energy and commitment to community back home. That same day, we visited an organization called Thank Israeli Soldiers, which was a center for veterans dealing with PTSD. It was started by a vet who met another vet who was suffering and didn't know what to do. The first one connected him with other vets and a therapist, and this organization was born. Again, Someone saw a need and figured out how to meet it. These vets were from October 7th, but also from other earlier soldier experiences. One man had fought 50 years ago in the Yom Kippur War and had only recently been able to begin to grapple with the pain he had been experiencing for years. I was overwhelmed with how community members all over Israel have risen up to help one another. My deep sense of admiration for the Israelis has inspired me to look at what more I could be doing in my own communities, be they Beth Jacob, St. Paul, and beyond. I don't think I was surprised when people where we volunteered thanked us. What did take me aback was how much gratitude was expressed to us every day for our just being there. Israelis were blown away by the reality that a group of Americans would just show up and listen and promise to take their stories home and share them. A hotel owner, shopkeepers in the shuk, and people in restaurants told us how they were hurting for business. Our family members and friends that we visited in our second week were happy we came to visit, but mostly overwhelmed and grateful for our just being there. It is an entire country that needs to know they have support and that we want them to exist and thrive, and that we want the hostages, alive and dead, to be returned to their families.
I was profoundly impacted by the effects of October 7th and the war in Gaza on the people of Israel and everyone's constant thoughts about the hostages and need to bring them home. Everywhere we went in Israel, there are signs of the hostages. This starts when you arrive at Ben Gurion Airport and are walking down the ramps to passport control, and you see all their pictures. And it continues on every road and intersection of the country where there are yellow chairs and pictures of the hostages. We listen to stories from family members of hostages at the Hostages and Missing Family Forum in Tel Aviv and at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. The entire country is dealing with this ongoing tragedy. And even still today, we talk about the 59 remaining hostages, not just the 24 presumed still alive, but also the 35 who are presumed to be dead, and the imperative to see them all returned to Israel. Today's Parsha starts off talking about how, and Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, who had exacted an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will be sure to take notice of you, that you shall carry up my bones from here with you. Not only do the remaining living hostages need to be returned, but also the remains of those that were killed need to be released so they can be laid to rest in Israel, just as Joseph's bones were. Israel has a remarkable history and is an amazing country. Its people are incredibly resilient. It has its faults, as all countries do, and is facing challenges as few countries have had to. We felt lucky to have been able to travel there and be with the people of Israel at this time and do our little part to help make things better. And yes, we also got to be tourists after our first week, when we traveled to Jerusalem for a few days and walked for hours in this wonderful city. And we traveled north to Zichron Yaakov to visit cousins at their winery, Tishbe Winery, for 2 days. Then we went near Haifa with a friend to the kibbutz he grew up on, Kibbutz Ramat Yochanan, and then spent our last day and a half in Tel Aviv, exploring more of the city we hadn't seen before. All the while, we tried to help the Israeli economy as much as we could by spending our money.
Now it is up to all of us to figure out what we can do going forward, including traveling to Israel and supporting the country, and how we might bring some of what we learned there back home. I also want to call your attention to the fact that in the lobby are 2 large picture boards created by the Minneapolis Jewish Foundation with photos from the trip for you to look at. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.